All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and get us started, so that we end on time. I'm just adding in the last few of us. But here we go. So this is the final, an overview on how to get started, May 19th. Just a quick thing, the session will be recorded. Again, especially I'm going to be uploading this, so if you want to review this later. Class norms, as usual, is going to be active listening, one mic, be kind, respect different ideas, for sure participate when it's asked, and be present. All right, so here's the agenda. We're going to do a quick check-in question with about the 14 of us that are here. We're going to talk about how to model the final. That means I'm going to be using like paper, pencil to show you how to do that. And then any last minute questions you have about the final. So y'all, this is our last instructional week. That means pre-calculus is done this week. These are our last 3 days. All you have to do now is the final. Basically, I'd like it by Wednesday, but if you do need Thursday and Friday to work on it, I'll happily accept it. But after Friday, I'm just gonna cut it off from there. Unless you text me, right? Let me know if you need some more time. And then seniors, the week after this week is going to be you all preparing for your presentations of learning and how to do that, with your advisors. And then as far as juniors, they're going to be doing some form of WLAE. So that's what's happening in the next week. But basically, pre-calculus class, this is our last week. And this is, again, all on the virtual calendar. To access the final, you click on the link and it takes you to it. Okay, so our final is up. It's on the virtual calendar. It looks like this when you click it. It is a Desmos activity, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But before we talk about the final and all that, let's go ahead and do some connecting. How are you feeling about this being the last week of instruction? It's not just pre-calculus, it's also for all your classes. It's the last week of instruction for all your classes. So how do you feel about that? Um, Feelings, thoughts, anything like that, let's go ahead and put that into the chat. And then this could be like our way of taking our morning attendance for the seniors who are here. Again, juniors are having a WLE bootcamp meeting at this time, so they're excused from this. So go ahead and use the chat feature to put in how you're feeling about this being the last week of instruction. I think Diego is nervous. Yeah. And Faith is ready to be done. Question mark from Abel. So it's probably an emoji we can't see. Ready to be done, you too, Raven. And then Viviana's kind of excited. Perry, you're okay. Happy, that's good, Abel. Dylan, you're like, eh. Leisha and Winnie, you both are like, okay, I'm feeling good about that. So, neutral from Darian. And then happy for this to be over from Brooke. And then glad things are ending for Diana. Yeah, it's a tough times right now. All right, and then for those who just came in, we're just doing the quick check-in about how we're feeling. This week is our last week of instruction. So again, actually, if you're a junior, you want to make sure that you're actually going to Carla's meeting, which is the WLE Bootcamp. I will be uploading the recording of this, but basically the WLE Bootcamp you want to prioritize. So you do not have to attend this current meeting right now if you're a junior. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in and get started on the final. So here we go. This is how it's going to run down. I'm going to have to end this meeting around 12:28 to get started for the AP Calculus, my class for that. So I want to make sure I give you all the information you need before we have to call it quits on this meeting. But I'm going to open up the Desmos final. I'm going to discuss how to use the Desmos. And then we're going to talk about how to model that Ferris wheel problem for those of you who already looked at the final. And I'm going to talk about how to model that using paper pencil. And then if time, talk about how to get the A, B, C parts in the final. So that's our activity, is what we're gonna do. All right, so this is the focus of today's discussion right now, today's live Zoom. This is, I believe, in the third slide of your final in Desmos. for the first thing you want to do is you want to create a model. The model's the height of the situation. After you draw, right, here's a pencil, you draw the model, you have to actually find what A, B, and C are and explain how you found those. Give me a second. I'm adding in Bruno. Somebody's calling. Okay. So let's just quickly read the problem before I jump into it, though. Slowly reading it. So here's the main juicy problem in the final. So it says a Ferris wheel is 60 meters in diameter, and it rotates once every 4 minutes. So you get on, and after 4 minutes, you're back to the where you started. It says that the center axle of the Ferris wheel is 40 meters from the ground. I think the center axle is this thing, so it's up high 40 meters. Then it says using this this axis below, sketch a graph to show how the height of the passenger is going to vary or basically change over time. Then it says assume the wheel starts rotating when the passenger is at the bottom. So here we have y-axis is height. Here they didn't label the x-axis, but I'm assuming it's minutes because it says every 4 minutes it completes a round. So let's just say this x-axis is minutes. So we're going to talk about how we do this problem. So for that, I'm going to open up the final. And again, use the chat if you have any clarifying questions or anything. But here you could see is the final. I have my teacher mode, and there's also the student mode. That's what you can see. So the final has about 10 slides in it. In the second slide, what I have for you here is a Desmos thing where you could play around with stretching, compressing a cosine function. And the third slide is the thing that we're going to be doing right now, discussing how to model how the Ferris wheel is moving. Number 4 is kind of describing like how the diameter and the height of the axle affect your function. And that one I'm hoping by the end of the Zoom we'll get started on. Then number 5 was where I wanted you to stop here for today for our discussion. But you gotta, to complete the final, you gotta move on to the next parts. There's gonna be a card sort. And then after the card sort, like describing like how you know certain things match up. For example, this one, write a function that describes this. How did you decide which card matches with this card? Then lastly, you're done. Number 10 is like a blank slide that you're done. So that is our full final. Just as an overview. And when I hit the teacher mode on this, guys, just so you know, if you logged in and you did some of it, I am able to see, like for example, I could see here who played around with the Desmos already and where you left off at. I'm also able to see what you guys thought for the pre-assessment problem. Some of you did follow the directions and created a sketch. I could see that Darian has a sketch, some dots here on Tanya's, and Raven has a bit of a sketch there too. Let me check the chat. I see something happening. We can't use anything to help us. I don't know if that you're talking about Spanish, Diego, or you're talking about my class. And then Faith, you said, what if you don't pass it? You should be able to pass it. To be honest, if you use this video, and basically the rest of the questions are like, how did you do, like why, how, it's your thoughts. Like if you think like a certain answer is a certain way and you explain your reasoning for it, you should pass. I'm not going to dock down if you're wrong, like the wrong answer. What I want is for you to think about the problem and explain why you think that. That's pretty much what you want to do for the final. So you should pass it if you complete it, Faith, and just explain your thoughts. So Diego, you said, is it for more participation, your class as well? So yeah, I hope I answered that too, Diego, about like what Faith said, like what if you don't pass it? As long as you go through all the slides and you explain your whys and your reasoning, you will be fine for my final. And let me let in Bella. Okay, for those who just came in, I'm just discussing the overview of the final. Right now I'm taking a look at those who got started and their responses. And I'm gonna go ahead and talk about slide number 3 and how to get started on that. And then again, guys, just so y'all know, as long as you do work on here, it kind of saves like a Google Doc. Like whatever work you do and you leave it like that, I am able to see it in my teacher mode. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna go back to student mode. so that we can try to tackle slide number 3, this problem, how to actually model how the Ferris wheel is moving. So to do that, let me get rid of this. So to do that, and then for this one though, of course, if you're watching the Zoom, you should actually have this graph on point because I'm going to talk about it right now for those who are watching. Okay, so what I have for you now, you can see is I have my scratch paper. I'm going to kind of just draw my Ferris wheel to represent what's happening. And then I'm going to use this tool, so you could draw, to create my model. So that's actually what you want to do. You got to create your model. Then you can focus on the second part of the question, which is what is A, B, and C. Let me just undo. Okay. And then let me just double check the chat. Okay, good. All right, so here's how we're going to start. So it says a Ferris wheel is 60 meters in diameter. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw a circle. Yeah, and I'm always a paper pencil type of person. I need to kind of like use actual paper to, do math. It's hard to do it just online, just looking at a screen. So this is 60 meters, they said, the diameter. That means it's like 2 radiuses. It's the whole line that goes through it is 60 meters. Okay. And then it says it rotates once every 4 minutes. That I'm just going to put up here as a special piece of information. That's just important to know for our graph. The next thing it says is the center of the axle of the Ferris wheel is 40 meters from the ground. So that means the thing that's holding up the Ferris wheel, the center axle, I hope that kind of does not look in the middle, but y'all can hopefully guess what I mean. There we go. Just make that be the middle. Is about, it says 40 meters off the ground. Like that. So I'm just doing a rough sketch of the Ferris wheel and the information that we know. Okay, now our next thing is to try to kind of like figure out what is going to be my height each time I'm going around the Ferris wheel. So it says assume that you start at the bottom. So let's imagine that I'm a passenger, I get on the Ferris wheel and I'm down here. I want to figure out what is my starting height. That means when t equals 0 minutes, where am I? How high am I actually? So that means I got to figure out what is this height. So if you notice here, the diameter right here is 60 meters. That means half of this diameter, right? Right here, this half, that must be 30 meters. Like the radius is 30. That means half of the diameter is 30. Cool. And then I know that this whole big stick right here is 40. That means this question mark must be what length? Go ahead and use the chat to tell me what length do you think that is? That segment of how high I am starting off. Diego says 10, Wendy 10, Leisha 10. That is correct. We are 10 meters high at the beginning, right? Basically 40 minus 30. So that's our starting amount. So check this out. I'm going to go to the left-hand side right here where my graph is at. So here at t equals 0 minutes, oops. At t equals 0 minutes, I am 10 meters high. So I'm going to put a dot there at 10. So that's how I'm basically starting off my graph. Okay. Now let me tell you the strategy that I'm going to do next. Now it's going to be kind of hard to figure out what my height is right here. Like it's kind of harder to figure out what my height would be exactly at this part, these spots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to imagine I'm dividing up my circle into 4 parts. Like there's up here. So basically like this is 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I'm kind of dividing it into 4 chunks. So that my next position, I'm going to say, let's say I'm going to go up here after 1 minute. So after 1 minute, I'm up here. I'm going to kind of ignore what's happening here because I feel like if I focus on these points right here, I'm going to get a good like estimate of what's happening with my height. So after 1 minute, I'm up here. What is my height here now? What do y'all think would be my height? You could go ahead and use the chat. So now that I moved up here after 1 minute, what is my height? I see 2 people in the chat. Leisha, okay, everyone there is saying 40. Good, y'all are in agreement. So after 1 minute, we are 40 meters high. Perfect. So then we're gonna go back to our graph. We're gonna say, okay, 1 minute. I'm gonna put a dot that we're 40 minutes high after 1 minute. There's my second point. Oh, look at that, and Diego, you're already making some connections. You said then 60 and back to 40, close. Let's see, is the top really gonna be 60? So if, okay, so we're gonna move on from here. So all the way at the top, right? If we end up, so that's gonna be 1 minute. So after 2 minutes, we're up here. So that's after 2 minutes. How high am I? So the diameter of the circle is 60, but don't forget about the 10 that's holding up the Ferris wheel. Yeah, 70. That's correct, Diego. So yeah, because you have to do the diameter, which is 60, plus the 10. So you're up high 70 meters up here. If y'all could see that. So the 60 plus 10, you're up at 70. And then hold on a second, looks like someone's trying to join. And then Darian, let me know what, oh, okay, I think Darian, you meant the 40 from previous, I think. Okay, so yeah, we're up at 70 up at this point. So let's go ahead and do that. So after 1 minute, we're 40 meters high. Then after 2 minutes, we're up 70 meters. So we're gonna go over here, 2 minutes, we're gonna put a dot at 70. All right, let's keep going. So kind of like Diego was already seeing a pattern there. So now we're gonna go back down to a height of 40 now. After 3 minutes, we're gonna go back down to a height of 40. Because you know that's the height of that center axle thing that's holding up the Ferris wheel. So 3 minutes, we're gonna go back here. We're at 40. Then you imagine that you're going back down to your starting position. You're back down to 10 meters. So after 4 minutes, you're back down to 10. So take a look. We've completed one cycle of the Ferris wheel. This looks like a bit of a curve, but you don't want to stop after the 4 minutes, right? Because it says after 4 minutes, you complete a cycle. That's, you're back to 10 meters after 4 minutes. But now you want to keep going. And like, you could already imagine that the pattern's going to be the same. So it's going to be 10, 40, 70, 40, 10, and so forth. It's just going to keep repeating. So we could go ahead and fill this out. So at 5 minutes, back up to 40, 6 minutes, back up to that maximum of 70. 7 minutes, we're back down to 40. And after 8 minutes, you're back down to 10. So this, like in the final for you, you have to make sure that you sketch out these points and try your best to draw a line through them. I am really bad with making a smooth curve, but something, oh yeah, I missed that, but something like that is an approximation of it. So once we have our model, right, you have the model, that's just kind of one half of the problem. Now it says we need to find what A, B, and C are and describe how we found that. So that's our next step. Okay, so let's jump into that next step. So I don't think I need my little picture anymore because that was just to help me, you know, make my sketch. So I'm gonna take this out and I'm gonna show you what we do next. So what you do next is we gotta find out what A, B, and C are by using the Desmos. So actually that's why I put this Desmos here. But I want you to notice something. So if I go back here, you only have A, B, and C. But if you look back at your Desmos, I added in A, B, C, and also a D. For this problem, I actually had to add the D because that gives us the side-to-side shift. If you're able to figure out with just A, B, and C, let us know. but just as a little tip there, I added in the D to help us figure this out. And you could definitely talk about, I'm sorry, in slide 3, you could talk about comma D as well, if we're using D. So let's figure this out. So I want to kind of like manipulate this graph to look like the model that we just made, right? So we want to make sure that the graph, the middle or the midline of this graph right here is at 40. So I'm going to try to do that first. So instead of the middle being 0 here, I want it to be at 40. And if you all remember the transformations, if you have a plus something on the outside of your function, that's the thing that moves your graph up and down. So I'm going to make a 40 and see if that's the thing that moves it up for us. Zoom out a bit. Zoom in around there. So yeah, it looks like I now have the midline of this cosine function at 40, which is an agreement with how we have it here, where like the middle midline here is at 40. Good. The next thing I want to do is I notice that this cosine function is stretched. How it's stretched is you check from here. So it's from 40 is the midline, and then it goes up to 70 as the highest point. From 40 to 70, that means it's kind of stretched by 30. Like 30 times 1 gives us that stretch of 30. So I want to stretch this graph so that this high point goes up by 30. So the thing that stretches your function is this b term right here, because it's right in front of your function. It's being multiplied by it. And this was like, from our last week lessons about transforming graphs. So b, I'm going to just say, let's make it 30, because that's a number I was saying was different between 70 and 40. So let's take a look here. It's starting to look more and more like the Ferris wheel. We just want to find what values here work to make it look exactly like our problem. Okay, just double checking our time. Okay, go. All right, so the middle is 40. We got the highest point here. Looks to be almost about 70. It's 69.9. That's about, it's okay. Not bad. Now, the next thing we want to do is, it looks like I got like the stretch good. It looks like I got the midline good. The only problem now, or the biggest problem is, first off, our function starts at 10. When t equals 0, we're at 10. But if you look here, look at this. When t equals 0, we're at 69.9, which is a problem. So now what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to use the d. This d right here shifts our function side to side. I'm going to try to shift it so that I get maybe the starting point around here, just like how we started on our Ferris wheel. Hold on a second. I think Steve is trying to add in. Sorry for the traffic noise. So let's try to play around with D. I'm going to just, I don't know, make it, let's do 20. D is 20. So I notice if I made D 20, that just shifted my cosine graph to the left slightly. I'm going to try to shift it to the left so that this starting point hits at 10, just like our sketch. So it's moved it a little bit. So I'm going to say D is 100. I'm going to choose a more bigger number. That's still not as good. Sorry, what did 50 do? Yeah, and 100. Nope. Let's do 150. I'm just trying to shift this so that this bottom part starts at 10. We're almost there. 160, almost there. Almost. Let's see. Does this work? Yeah, check it out. So when t equals 0 minutes, we're at 10 meters. So we kind of got it to start the way that we started down here. See, when t equals 0, it's 10. Cool. So we're kind of almost there with making our function look like the model. See, we almost have A, B, C, D. The thing that we now need to play around with is C. Now let me explain what C does in this last minutes that we have, guys. And again, I'm going to upload the recording. What C does is it shrinks the curve. Basically, what we want to do with C is we completed one cycle like this in 4 minutes. So we want to make sure that here we complete one cycle in 4 minutes. But notice right now how it's set up. The cycle is done after 360 minutes. So we got to kind of shrink this up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and try to maybe increase the values of C and see what that does. If C is 2, it shrinks it. C is 3, it shrinks it. We just gotta keep shrinking it until, check. Is that the work being shown for the values we get A, B, and C? Yeah, so basically, you know how I'm right now showing you guys how I'm testing out the values? That's what you wanna write about. Like, "Hey, I got A because I tested out this, that." If you did it differently from me, or if you're watching it and understanding with how I did it, you could explain it in your own words right now, how you're seeing that I'm figuring out the A, B's, and C's. I'm just trying to match it up to that model for the Ferris wheel that we got. And then right now we're stuck at part C. So let's see, I made C3 right now, and I'm gonna go ahead and check, does one cycle, this is how I check one cycle, is I just check from here to here. Right now it's still ending after 120 minutes. Again, we wanna make sure one cycle ends after 4 minutes. So I'm gonna make my C very large. Let's make C, I don't know, 30. And that really makes it hard to test. So what I'm gonna do is fix my window. So this is probably something you wanna do because I know X has to end at 4. So I'm just gonna make this 10 and this one be negative. So right now what I'm doing, guys, fixing the window so it doesn't look all scrunched up like it did. Good, so this is a better view. So now when I made C30 right here, the cycle ends after 12 minutes. Remember, we want 4 minutes because from here to here was 4 minutes. So it looks like I need to make C even larger. And you just keep testing it like that. So again, you want to make sure this is 4, not 9. So it's up to you guys to kind of find that precise C value that will work. But you notice that as I'm making C go up and up, it's getting more and more precise. You just want to make sure that you create this model with A, B, C, and D that matches the one that we just made here for the Ferris wheel. Let's see who's in the chat. Okay, so Diego, you said try C as 70. Let's try that. Oof, I don't know if that's gonna be, oh, let's see, not bad, let's see. Almost, Diego, look at that. It's this cycle is gonna end at 5.1 minutes, almost there. So yeah, so it looks like we need to go a little bit higher for C to figure out when it hits exactly at 4 minutes. All right, guys, so it looks like because I got to get started to prep for AP Calc, if y'all can put here in the chat that you were here until the end of it, for the seniors that were here to give you the credit. Again, if you're a junior, do not worry about your credit since you had another meeting to go to. All right, guys, I'm excited to see what y'all show me in this final. And I hope you all have a good day. Let me know. Tomorrow I got my office hours, by the way, if anyone needs some more one-on-one help on the final from 11 to 12. All right, I'm gonna be ending this meeting now, y'all. Good luck. Make sure you put here in the chat. All right, bye, guys.